The other day, Elizabeth Warren officially ended her run to be president of the United States. And immediately we saw mainstream and resistance feminists crying foul, saying women are held back. This is sexism and misogyny, bullying. And even Bernie Sanders supporters, the Bernie bros, were targeting women. Elizabeth Warren herself, in fact, just called out Bernie supporters for targeting women. Rachel Maddow, in an interview with Elizabeth Warren, names all of the candidates except Tulsi Gabbard and says it was crushing, a death knell for a future female POTUS. Yet perhaps the reason Elizabeth Warren didn't succeed is that she is a liar and a bad candidate. Yet here's the big problem I see. The complete hypocrisy of the Democratic Party in claiming that it's bullying that holds women back while they all simultaneously slam Tulsi Gabbard as though she doesn't matter. While many of the Democrats claim they want a woman or a person of color, yet they all vote for old white men. Let me remind you of what we are seeing right now. A 78-year-old socialist who just had a heart attack and a 77-year-old man who is incoherent and often confused about where he is are the front runners. The choice of the Democratic voters over Elizabeth Warren, who is actually almost a decade younger than the other two candidates. So is the issue that Elizabeth Warren was being held back by sexism, as many of these people say, or is it possible she's just a bad candidate? Democrats, you can't have it both ways. When this was brought up, when it was brought up that the Democrats were nominating old white men and choosing people like Bernie Sanders, they actually said, aha, maybe it's because this proves we care more about policy than identity, and that those claiming Democrats care about identity are exaggerating the true problem. But as soon as Warren loses, they say it is misogyny. It is a death knell. They say Hillary Clinton was held back while these same people slam or even outright ignore Tulsi Gabbard. I'm tired of it. You want to know why I think Elizabeth Warren didn't make it? I think she didn't make it because she was awful. She actually had a period where she was number one, but she is awful. So you know what? Yes, people would rather have the 78-year-old socialist who just had a heart attack. They would rather have incoherent Joe Biden than inconsistent and deceptive Elizabeth Warren. But here's what I'm going to do. I want to walk you through some of the hypocrisy I see from these comments. Notably, the first story. Rachel Maddow tells Warren her 2020 exit is crushing, a death knell for a future female POTUS. In her statement, she doesn't even name Tulsi Gabbard. Why? Hillary Clinton went after Jill Stein and Tulsi Gabbard. Why is the Democratic establishment allowed to go after female candidates that actually have support from activist bases? Yet when they lose, they cry sexism. I'll tell you why. Because it's not true, and they're hypocrites. I'm going to say it before we get started. I actually have a Democrat feminist who claims Hillary Clinton was the best candidate who ever run, which just, for me, screams hypocrisy. Because it's the Democratic voters who did not choose her. The American people, when we're looking at the primary, Democrat voters themselves are not choosing these candidates. It's not sexism. Or maybe it is, but we're not talking about conservatives holding you back. We're talking about your own party. Now let's read the story, the first one from Fox News. However, before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There are several ways you can give, but the best thing you can do, share this video. Perhaps it won't break any echo chambers, but it does help the channel grow because YouTube is suppressing my channel and others in the algorithm. Also, if you do like this content and want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can bypass YouTube's restrictions. From Fox News, they report MSNBC host Rachel Maddow shared her dismay with Senator Elizabeth Warren, who dropped out of the 2020 race after a dismal showing on Super Tuesday, that there might not be a female president in her lifetime. I honestly do think so. I think it is a very steep uphill battle for female candidates for a lot of reasons. But I don't necessarily think the issue is Americans don't want a female, because there was a poll done. I don't have the source pulled up, so fact check me on this one, that said Americans overwhelmingly would choose a female candidate so long as she is a good candidate. Let's read. Sitting in Warren's living room, Maddow told the progressive senator about the impact her withdrawal from the presidential campaign had on women, not acknowledging that Rep. Tulsi Gabbard is still in the race. Now, I think it's fair to point out Tulsi has 2 delegates, and the DNC is now changing the rules to make sure she won't be on the debate stage. I think it's fair to say she shouldn't be on the debate stage at this point, though I do think it's hilariously hypocritical that when you had Andrew Yang, Tulsi Gabbard, you had Cory Booker, they changed the rules, knocking them out of some of the debates at a time when there was no clear frontrunner. So that, in my opinion, is also hypocrisy. Where was the woke outrage at that point? Apparently non-existent. Here's the quote. Maddow said, "I'd like to ask you about the elephant in the room, which is a conversation you've had a number of ways, and you talked about it eloquently today. I think that a lot of women around the country right now feel differently about you dropping out. You leaving the race feels different. If Hillary Clinton can't win when she gets the nomination, and you can't get the nomination, and neither can Kamala Harris, and neither can Amy Klobuchar, and neither can Kirsten Gillibrand, I think part of what's going on today is women around the country are like, okay, honestly, if it's not going to be any of them, let's get real. Is it just that it can't be any woman ever? Are we just going to run, white men in their late 70s against each other, both parties, and that's all we can agree to do?" Overlooking the election of Barack Obama, she continued, "I think there's a feeling that your campaign ending is very specific to you. And it also feels a little bit like a death knell in terms of the prospects of having a woman president in our lifetimes." Oh, God, please no, Warren reacted. "That can't be right. You know what I'm talking about," Maddow said. "I know exactly what you're talking about. This cannot be the right answer. Perhaps it's because you and your party did not vote for Warren." The first bit of hypocrisy I might add is that they're acting like a woman can't be president, ignoring the fact that it was not conservatives who went in the Democratic primary. It was the Democratic Party themselves who said no to a person of color and no to a female candidate. Who did the Democrats actually choose? Old white men. So if you want to complain about social justice and sexism, start within your own party. Clean up your own room. The reality is your own party isn't interested. They chose old white men too. Now we can see there are some other elements to this. Pelosi says element of misogyny undermines women like Warren. I think there is, to a fair degree, sexism. I absolutely do. I think there are going to be people who say that they don't want a female to be president. But within your own party, you have to recognize that. Because, I think there are actually Democrats who are not going to choose someone like Warren. But the biggest problem I have with many of these social justice activists and advocates is that when you blame your immutable characteristics on your defeat, you never seek to improve. You are the people who tear down Tulsi Gabbard and then cry that a woman can't be president. She's actually a woman of color. You tear her down, then cry about it, when in reality, what you need to do is focus on what you can do to be a better candidate. I take you now to Democratic consultant, commentator, and feminist Jess McIntosh, who tweeted a thread that I think is an absolute must read following the loss, or I should say the Warren's campaign ending. She said, "Elizabeth Warren was the perfect test case, as smart or smarter than Hillary, just as prepared, just as qualified, and she didn't have her baggage, and she was a known progressive hero, and she turned out to be a fantastic campaigner, and still. I gave some thoughts a couple of days ago, which is good because I'm all out today. For the record, and this is a quote, mind you, Jess McIntosh says that Hillary was the best candidate ever to run. She said, she is perfection and I will defend her to the death. And I mean that. I will literally defend her until I am dead. It's just part of my life now. Warren was all the things everyone told us Hillary should have been. Would have been, if only. She was the literal woman they told us Hillary should be if she wanted to be the first woman president. That is what makes this particularly stinging. Once again, we followed everyone's advice. We checked all the boxes, and it didn't matter. We didn't get the job, and that's tough today. But we keep getting close, and we keep breaking through. Warren mattered. Kamala mattered. 2020 mattered for electing a woman president. It started with a field of women, and we watched each one of them face a different challenge because they were a woman. They all ran campaigns that were arguably tighter than the men's. They excelled in debates. They gaffed less. We are so much farther today than we were in 2016. It took us months to even recognize the role sexism played in Hillary's loss. And now it's such a given. It's a Hulu documentary. We talked about likability and electability. We didn't solve it, but we named it. We named all the double standards, the purity tests. We only hold women to the policy details. We don't force men to provide. The inability for a woman with Pete's age and resume or Bernie's age and demeanor to be taken seriously. The yelling thing. And a whole generation of girls are growing up only knowing presidential contests with smart, funny, wonderful women who look presidential as heck. It will be easier next time. I think it's funny that these are the same people that mock and belittle Tulsi Gabbard. Take a look at this story. Samantha Bee has an offer the 2020 Democratic candidates can't refuse. Drop out. One of the reasons, quote, I am Tulsi Gabbard. And this is so annoying to me for no reason. Let me ask you a question. Okay, so first let me say Samantha Bee has ragged on Tulsi Gabbard on several occasions. At this point, I think it's fair to say, as much as I am a fan of Tulsi Gabbard, supported her and donated to her campaign, I think she's out. She's still literally in the race. She's literally in third place. But with 2 delegates, she's not a contender at this point. And I'll be fair too. I never really thought she was going to be the front runner or win, but I did support her campaign. The problem I have is that you have to explain to me, why is it that you felt it was okay to target Tulsi Gabbard and tear her down? Is it because you were all misogynists? Or was it because you disagreed with Tulsi Gabbard's Gabbard's principles, her positions, and her behavior? Pick one. I think it's fair to say that many people who didn't like Tulsi didn't like her for, well, reasons that literally made no sense. The establishment smeared her, called her a Russian asset. They didn't like the fact that she was trying to speak with Fox News. In fact, Anderson Cooper claimed that she was trying to get a Fox News position. And it was funny because he said it to Andrew Yang, who literally got a CNN contributor position. Hypocrisy there much? But it's not misogyny when they do it to Tulsi Gabbard. It's principle. But when Hillary Clinton and Elizabeth Warren lose, that surely must be sexism. Now, I think it's fair to point out Elizabeth Warren's defeat proves that there are many Democrats who do vote on policy. When many progressives said they would vote for Bernie over Warren, I think it shows that those individuals care more about policy than identity. And that's fair. So I want to make sure you understand my criticism is directly pointed at these people who scream misogyny, but would speak ill of Tulsi Gabbard. And I speak mostly of Hillary Clinton herself. I want to show you this. We have this story from GQ. I think it's important to point this one out. Tulsi Gabbard is outlasting Buttigieg and Klobuchar. I just want to show you that people acknowledge she is still in the race. But take a look at this from Reuters. Hillary Clinton blames election loss on sexism during UK book tour, October 15th, 2017. Former U.S. Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton blamed her 2016 loss to Donald Trump on sexism and the double standards women are held to in public life during a promotional tour for her new memoir in Britain on Sunday. The first question I have is, how come there have been no stories about the misogynism pointed at Tulsi Gabbard? Has there been? I haven't seen it. As someone who's been paying close attention, I haven't seen Bernie bros harassing Tulsi Gabbard for being a woman. I haven't seen the news media criticizing the targeting of Tulsi Gabbard for being a woman. I have seen the stories about Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren and Hillary Clinton's claim that she was the victim of sexism. But when it comes to the harshest takedowns, Samantha Bee, establishment routinely ragging on Tulsi Gabbard. And I don't know why, because the jokes she makes about her aren't about anything. She says Tulsi should drop out. Why? What's your criticism? There isn't one. She's just going after Tulsi. And how about this? Tulsi Gabbard sues Clinton over Russian asset smear. Did Hillary Clinton go after Joe Biden? No, she went after Bernie and Tulsi, though. Was it misogyny for her to go after Tulsi Gabbard? Should we expect her to have solidarity with Tulsi for being a woman? I don't think so. And I think it's fine if you want to criticize someone. But sure enough, Hillary Clinton goes after both Tulsi Gabbard and Jill Stein. Two people. Look, Jill Stein and Tulsi Gabbard, I don't think were ever in a position to be the front runners. I think it's a realistic position, as much as I would prefer. Well, I probably prefer Jill Stein in a lot of ways to Joe Biden, but probably not either. But I'll tell you this right now, too. Tulsi Gabbard is a major in the National Guard, young and energetic, and she's a much better candidate than Bernie Sanders or Biden, at least in my opinion. But even outside of policy, wouldn't you rather have a young service, personnel, a major no less, over the 78-year-old or the 77-year-old? Sure, fine. Tulsi's not going to win, and I can respect that. But Hillary Clinton claimed it was sexism that held her back when she literally held back Tulsi. So look, the point I'm trying to make is you're absolutely allowed to criticize Tulsi Gabbard, Jill Stein, Hillary Clinton, Warren, Kamala, Klobuchar, or otherwise. It has nothing to do with them being women. Yet we hear the stories over and over again. A woman can't be president. Oh, Warren's dropping out. But you're part of the establishment that smeared Tulsi Gabbard as a Russian asset. You played into these same lines. You held women back too. When it was about Tulsi, it was, we are just acting on principle. But when it's about your nasty neoliberal ladies, all of a sudden you're like, it's just because they're women. Mind you, that one feminist said Hillary Clinton was like the best candidate ever. Clearly she wasn't. She lost. You think the only reason she lost is because she's a woman? Then you're ignoring the scandals that people were upset about. And this is what I can't stand. When you ignore your faults and say you only lost because of your identity, you will never figure out why you really lost. You will blame the rest of the world instead of blaming yourself. I think it's fair to say sexism can play a role. Racism can play a role. I absolutely think I have been held back in some capacity by these things, but I'll tell you what, I ignore them. I don't focus on them, and I don't write them down and keep a chip on my shoulder about it. It doesn't matter to me. You know why? I can't do anything about it. If I meet someone who says something negative about me because I'm a man or because I'm, part Korean or part white, I don't care. Again, look, man, I'll tell you what, can't change it. Not going to worry about it. You know what I can do? I can run faster. I can jump higher. I can study harder. I can improve myself in these areas, and I can figure out how to use the cards I've been dealt to solve my problems. Elizabeth Warren lost because she was a bad candidate. That's it. Now, for the most part, or I should say to a certain degree, you can say that these things can hold people back. But we are also looking at a progressive faction of people in the Democratic Party who don't want to vote for men, who don't want to vote for white men, and who have stated as such. I think it was Amber Tamblyn who said she was going for, I can't remember which candidate, but she said she wouldn't support Bernie because he was an old white man. That's also gendered identity-based, voting. And it's the exact same problem. You should vote for someone because you like them as a candidate. Now, I've shown you the Real Clear Politics average on the Democratic side because to me it shows there are no principles. And along with calling out the hypocrisy of these particular Democrats, I'll be fair to say this too. It's often hard to figure out which Democrat you're calling out because they don't all completely agree. Certainly, it's fair to say the fact that Warren lost proves that there are many Democrats who are not hypocrites. They're willing to vote on policy regardless of gender because they don't take it as a factor. That's fair. But these high-profile individuals, Rachel Maddow, Elizabeth Warren, Hillary Clinton, they're prominent party members or figures. They should be called out. Take a look at this. And I'll make this point I've made in several videos that I can't seem to understand. Joe Biden was the front runner. All of a sudden, he started polling less than Bernie Sanders. All of a sudden, now Joe Biden is polling more than Bernie Sanders. I'll tell you what, there is no principle. There is no integrity. I don't know. I can't tell you exactly why people are going to be voting or supporting these candidates other than they're just hoping to win. Maybe it's true many people didn't think a woman could win, and that's why none of the women in the race actually made it. I don't know. But I can tell you this. The Democrats can argue all day and night. It's about their principles and their integrity and they're being held back. But the Democratic voters themselves did not choose Elizabeth Warren. Sorry. If you've got a problem with sexism, look in your own party. Look at the fact that people were more willing to support someone almost a decade older than Warren. Someone who just had a heart attack, someone who can't speak. You want to talk about sexism? At the very least, I can say it's your party's fault, at least for now. And we can see that while Warren did crack the first place position briefly, this was on October 8th, she just fell below Bernie and Biden. And the reality is maybe she's just not good enough. But I think the actual reality is people just want to vote for someone who they think will win. And they didn't think she would win. Now that Biden won on Super Tuesday, all of a sudden we're seeing Democrats say he's their choice. How does that make sense? I'm so confused by this. My position on who I wanted to win the Democratic nomination didn't change because of who I thought could win. In fact, I thought Yang and Tulsi weren't going to win, and surprise, surprise, they didn't. But those are the people I was getting behind because I supported what they were saying. I disagree with a lot about what they were saying too. But I wanted to see Yang and Tulsi on the debate stage to talk about these ideas, to have them challenged and to challenge others. Instead, what do we get? We get the flip-floppers. Biden is now disagreeing with the Obama policy he supported. You've got Bernie Sanders, who's completely flipped on 2A and who's completely flipped on immigration. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that their policies aren't consistent. It doesn't matter what policies they're pushing. It doesn't matter if they know how they can implement them. It just matters if they can win, as exemplified by the polls themselves. And I'll tell you what, I'm not going to give Republicans a free pass on this one either, It's just the fact that Trump has been unifying the party. Trump is the incumbent, and we're not looking at who Trump is running against. The fact is people like the guy, the party's unified behind him. Right now, what we're looking at, and this may be true for all humans, period, when it comes to elections, is that if you tell people Bernie will win, all of a sudden everyone says they'll vote for him. If you then tell them actually Biden's going to win, then everyone changes their position and now claims they're going to vote for Joe Biden. To me, it shows it doesn't matter. It literally does not matter. There is no principle. There is no policy idea. Bernie can't tell you what he's going to do. Biden can claim that he's coming off the Obama era, but that he's changing his opinion now. He recently came out in favor of a moratorium on deportations. So why are you voting for the guy? Tell me why. No. You've seen the man on the street interviews, right? When you walk up to someone on average and ask them, what is it about Biden? What is it about Bernie? What is it about Warren that makes you want to support them? They don't give you an answer. They tend not to know. And these are the people that are driving elections in this country. And the consultants who run these campaigns know it. And that's why they say the things they say. So now I'll bring you to my final thought on why this all happens. Why is Elizabeth Warren blaming sexism? Most of you know this already. It's the easy out. It's the easy explanation. Instead of saying you did a bad job, you can just claim it was everyone else and it's not your fault. We got to do better next time. You want to try to pressure the electorate into saying that they must vote for you or pressure them into voting for you simply because you're a woman to make it easier on yourself. Play the victim. That's what they do because they don't actually have any strong reasons. The consultants know people will vote based on emotion and less on principle. And that's why you will see people say whatever they need to say to whoever they need to say it to in order to get that vote. It's why Bernie Sanders used to say that open borders was a Koch brothers proposal. And now he's saying decriminalize, moratorium on deportations, et cetera, et cetera. It's why Joe Biden is saying the same thing. They're desperate to convince you that just vote for them, not on the policies, but on the pandering. And what is Warren doing right now? What is Rachel Maddow doing? They are pandering. When it comes to Tulsi Gabbard, principles fly out the window. They can smear her, they can slam her, they can insult her. And at that point, it's just because we're principled and we're calling out Tulsi Gabbard for her slights and for her failures. But then when someone calls out Warren for being a liar, it's because people are misogynists. When Hillary Clinton loses because she was an awful candidate that progressives hated, that conservatives and moderates hated, they say it's sexism. She cries sexism. And I'll tell you one more. Hillary Clinton recently said of Bernie Sanders. Bernie said on the debate stage, whoever gets the most delegates should win. Hillary Clinton was being interviewed about how Bernie wanted a contested convention in 2016. And she said, ha, 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 well, there are rules. We should follow the rules. We all knew what the rules were when we got into it. That's interesting. That's the Republican argument on the Electoral College, that she knew the rules when she entered the 2016 race, and she lost those rules, but then later called for abolishing the Electoral College, along with many other Democrats. Hypocrites. Because now you'll say the same thing to Bernie. Look, they're all hypocrites, Bernie included. There is no right way to address this. There is no right way to figure out how to be a principled individual running in this race and supporting these people because, well, for one, I can't figure it out. And this graph should be proof to you. I'll wrap it up here. This graph should be proof to you. There is no real way to be principled, consistent, and a Democrat. Now, again, it may be true of Republicans, but we're not looking at a Republican primary. What we're looking at right now is people claiming they'd vote for Biden up until the media said Biden is losing. Then they said, I'll vote for Bernie then. Then the media said Bernie's losing, and they said, I'll vote for Biden again. These are polls. The same people, sort of. They're polling in the same way, asking the similar questions with updated news. People don't care what you stand for. They don't care who you are. They just care if you're the winner. So now it's Biden, which says to me, complete and total hypocrisy. I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. youtube.com/TimCastNews, and I will see you all then.